Hey, welcome to Two Doctors Homestead. My name's Daniel, and I want to talk about apocalypse fatigue. I think that's going to be a hot term going into 2024, and I have a feeling a lot of you guys are feeling that apocalypse fatigue. I think it's a real thing, you know. When you look at prepper history, if you roll the clock back 10 years, 20 years, even 30 years, I'm second generation prepper. My dad was a prepper. You know, even watching shows like that old Doomsday Prepper show, you know, you ask people, why are they prepping? And it would be something outlandish like the Yellowstone supervolcano, and it would be like, what? That's not a thing. Or the pole shifting. We're worried about the pole shifting. We're worried about civil unrest, collapse of the currency, World War III. They'd throw out all these things. And 20, 30 years ago, you say, wow, that's crazy. That's never going to happen. But here we are, right? I feel like here we are, and we're getting apocalypse fatigue. All you have to do is turn on the news, and you're seeing glimpses of all of those things that people talked about almost as a fantasy 20, 30 years ago. It seems like we're seeing all of that bubbling up into reality. And it's not just the preppers anymore, but, Iceland. We had Iceland came up and all the earthquakes, people like, hey, it might be a super volcano. Like, what? Super volcano? CME, there's reports from NASA about possible CMEs hitting us, big ones, maybe in 2024, 2025. And the poles are actually shifting. It's a thing. The north and south poles are going to flip, and it seems to be happening maybe slowly, and no one knows exactly what that's going to do. We have a magnetic field around the Earth, and that tends to protect us from radiation, and that's sort of moving around, right? All that stuff is actually happening right now. Global warming, I know some people believe, some people don't believe. That seems to be happening right now, and maybe another pandemic. They're already talking about what's the next viral or the next pandemic that's going to hit us. As I said, it used to be prepper fiction 20, 30 years ago, and now you just have to turn on the news, and it's endless wars and other apocalyptic sounding events, right? And I think there's a fatigue setting in. I think we're all getting apocalypse fatigue, right? And he said it's not just the preppers. So these are some older numbers. I suspect it could be higher than this, but 64% of people surveyed across 50 countries think we're in a climate emergency, and a lot of the climate emergency people tend to think it could be bad, right? Bad things coming, climate changing, whether it's the rising sea levels or something else, right? 64% of people, that's a lot. That's a high percentage of people. That's not just the preppers. Halifax International Security Forum finds 73% of people on average across 33 countries expect World War III in the next 25 years. That's 75% of the people surveyed. Once again, a large percentage of the population are getting that apocalypse fatigue. Jerusalem Post, 47% of Christians think we're in the end times. So once again, that's an older number. It may be higher. So whether you're on the climate side, whether you're on the religious end time side, a lot of people are looking at what's going on in the world right now and wondering, is this it, right? And that can be exhausting. It really can. It really can be exhausting. So as a prepper, you have to do risk management, right? And that's part of staying sane, and part of being prepared is you sort of need to get a sense for what's actually coming in order to prepare for it, right? You can't prepare after something's already happened. And I was actually talking to a prepper on Twitter, on X, and he was saying, well, if an EMP hit, my plan is I'm going to immediately go to the grocery store, and I'm going to get a bunch of canning jars so I can can all the food in my freezer, and I'm going to get a bunch of propane so I can run my pressure can. I'm like, wait, no. If your plan is day zero looting, that's not a plan, right? That's not a good plan. He says, what do you mean day zero looting? Well, if an EMP happens, right, there's not going to be any power. So maybe you can walk to the grocery store, but who's going to be there working at the grocery store if the power's out and the cars don't work and it's total blackout? And even if they were, there's no lights in the store. They're not going to be able to charge you for the things. No one's going to run a POS system without power. So is that really a plan, right? Is day zero looting a plan? You got to look at your plan. You can't wait until something happens. Say, well, if this happens, I'll do that, right? then I will start planning. If World War III happens and there's nukes flying, that's when I will start preparing for it, and that's too late. So as a prepper, when you're talking about risk management, you sort of have to look ahead. You sort of have to expose yourself to all the conspiracies or anything else going on and say, hey, what's the likelihood? What's the likelihood of World War III? And there was something recently, right? You probably already know there's conflict going on in the Middle East, and one of the countries was going to do this big announcement. We're all wondering, hey, is that it? Are they going to join into the war? And if they do that, is it going to spiral? Is it going to escalate? And I did a video on beware of escalations, because we're at that point now where there's multiple major wars going on, and anything could escalate out of control at any point. And once again, apocalypse fatigue, right? It seems like it's every corner, every day something new's coming up, and none of it is dialing back. We're not ratcheting back, right? I think it's only going to get worse, especially going into 2024 in the United States, an election cycle, and that certainly brings stress. We're already seeing civil unrest. There are clearly two sides, and each side is unhappy with the other side. I'll just say that. There's going to be a lot of politics next year. I don't know how much we're going to get into that, but what do you do? What do you do with the apocalypse fatigue? And I wanted to really get into that, give some strategies, and I will say it's okay. It's okay to disconnect sometimes, right? Stop doom scrolling, right? Step away from the news and say, yeah, there's a lot going on. I was looking at my timeline, and there was an article 6 years ago where North Korea was saying, hey, we're hours away from nuclear war, right? And anybody that's been at this for a long time knows we've always been hours away from nuclear war. We're hours away from World War III. The big CME's coming, and I'm not saying it's not, and I'm not saying you don't need to prepare. I think it is important to prepare, but I would say focus on what's attainable, right? What can you actually attain? What can you do about it? You can't stop the sun from releasing solar flares and having that CME, that Carrington event. They're saying that could happen, right? You can't stop that from happening. What can you attain? What can you do to prepare your family? I'd say don't buy stuff you can't afford. Certainly prepping does involve an accumulation, hoarding maybe. I don't like to use the word hoarding, because if you're buying food that you're going to eat and you have a rotational pantry, that's hardly hoarding. But focus on what you can attain, right? Don't go out of the way. Don't spend money you don't have. Have that plan. Look at it that way. Hey, what can I do this week? What can I do this month? Knowing that things just are continuing, right? And we do see a degrading, right? We see things slowly getting worse. What can you do to prepare? What's attainable? What can you actually accomplish? And try to dial back on the stress, right? There's no sense of being stressed out about all of this. I could see why it can be pretty scary with everything going on. It's easy to get sucked into it without even going down a rabbit hole. As I said, 20, 30 years ago, the preppers are talking about the polar shift, and I was like, what's that? What are you even talking about? You're nuts. And now there's some science behind it. It's actually happening, right? Same thing with a major solar flare. We've always known it's possible a major solar flare could hit, but now you have people like NASA saying, yeah, maybe 2024, maybe 2025, right? There's things that are now happening that used to be more in the realm of, you could say, fantasy, right? Or at least speculation, self-serving speculation maybe, right? But it's here. So I think focus on attainability. What can you do now? Even if it's something small, right? Once again, clean out your pantry. Look at what you have. Take stock of your preps. So we did a video on things that are not expensive to do. It doesn't have to be spending money. Certainly, if you're rich and you have a fully stocked bunker, that's great. That'll get you through a lot of disasters if there was a disaster to happen. You may not have that option. I don't have that option, but focus on moving yourself forward, moving your family forward, whether it's moving in the direction of self-sufficiency, which is something we always try to do here. We're homesteaders. I got my chickens in the background. I could see my pigs, my turkeys. We raised all our own pork for the year, right? We didn't have to buy pork. We did our own turkeys. Move in that direction. Look at how you can improve yourself, improve your situation, and move forward, right? Don't don't get stuck. Don't get stuck in a rabbit hole. And I'm guilty of that as well. Sometimes you start scrolling through the news. You're like, oh my God, what is it? Is this going to be the super volcano? Is it? Oh, are there going to be nukes flying in 4 hours? What's going to happen? And it's been this way for a long time, but it does seem like things are continually escalating and we're moving in some dangerous directions. But freaking out, panicking, stressing out, buying stuff you can't afford isn't necessarily going to improve your situation. I would focus on that, right? What's attainable? What can I do to improve my situation, improve my mental health? That's certainly important. Mental health is more important than doom scrolling, which is to say sitting there flipping through, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Right? Focus on your mental health. Focus on your goals, right? We're going to do some goals here, goals video. Well, we want to look at 2024, and we're already making a list. We did goals in 2023 to live your life, right? To find your happiness, to find what makes sense for you while preparing. Obviously you do need to keep aware of what's going on, but don't let it overwhelm you. So as always, guys, I hope that helps out. Thank you for watching, and we appreciate you.